Hello friends, welcome back to Cosmopolitan Cornbread. So I came up here on the mountain because I'm doing a little bit of foraging. Let's see if I can bring you a little closer here. So this right here is a wild berry called the American Beautyberry, and it's just this absolutely gorgeous plant. I mean, just look at this. And yesterday I came up the mountain to do a video. Our mountaintop is just, it's my favorite spot on the homestead, but I don't go up there a whole lot, at least not in the summertime, because there's a lot of brush I've got to go through to get to it. I do plan on, at some point this winter, clearing the path to get up there to make it a little bit more accessible. But it's one of my favorite spots, and I was up there yesterday morning filming a video, and I prayed all the way up there, so my mind was elsewhere. But on the way down, I came across beautyberries everywhere. And I knew we had them here. I had seen some here and there and everything, but this year I'm finding them everywhere. So this morning I'm going to be doing some harvesting, foraging these beautiful beautyberries, and then I'm going to go into the house. I'm going to help my son do another great big batch of pickles because we got cucumbers coming out of our ears right now. And then after we're done with the cucumbers and making the pickles, I'm going to can up some beautyberry jelly. Now, these beautyberries aren't like a raspberry. I mean, raspberries, have these little clusters of these little bitty beads, but they're all stuck together. Beautyberries are not like that. They're more like a miniature cluster of grapes. They're super, super tiny. So the easiest way to harvest them is to have some sort of basket, something that doesn't have a bunch of big openings in it. Hold the basket underneath the branch, and then just kind of gently pull, and they'll all just come off and fall into the basket. And I wanted to get out here this morning because these things are perfectly ripe, and I gotta beat the deer to them. So here you can see how little these berries are. If the camera is gonna focus, I'm not sure. But, so, this is what I'm going to be doing this morning. And actually, some of these clusters are just coming off on the stem, and that's okay too. I'll separate them out after I'm in the house. But we had a few of these beautyberries growing in Alabama. I had found them in a couple of spots, but these seem to like a spot where they can get a lot of sun, but in the woods. And we just didn't have a lot of that in Alabama. Generally, once you walked into the woods, it was just straight up woods. And there's a whole nother great big cluster of them hanging up there. But I don't think there's any way for me to reach that one. If I had my pruners, I could. Let me see. Oh yeah. I'll just snap the branch off. Look at that. Look at all those. Aren't they cool looking? Now, another very interesting thing about beautyberries is the leaves are a natural bug repellent. And you can take the leaves and just rub them on your skin, and the juices from the leaves repel bugs. Could be another reason there were a lot of Native Americans that lived here back in the day. We find evidence of them having been here a lot. Alright, and I'm not going to worry about getting every single berry off of the stem. We'll leave some for nature. That way there'll be more of these next year. I think there's a buzzard up there. I just saw some really big wings up in that tree. So I don't know if I was able to catch those great big birds that were sitting up there in that tree, but right down there in the rock face there's a small cave, and from what we can tell, we are pretty certain that that cave is occupied by buzzards, and that's what was sitting there in that tree. And they've kind of been circling around here like, what are you doing, woman? There's not usually people up here. And also, right behind me, well, to the side of me, is the drop-off, because I'm right here on the bluff, the rock face, the ridge line, which seems to be where these berries like to really grow. It's surrounded by woods, it's very rocky, but there's a little bit of sun here, and I'm seeing gobs of beautyberries up here. There's this great big bush right here, there's another one over there, and there's a whole bunch of them right down there, like down the rock face, which, depending upon how many I can get up here, I can get down there from a different angle, come in from the side, and get to those. So I've got about a cup so far, so we'll see whether I need to go down there or not. I probably will, because these are itty bitty little berries. And it is a little unnerving to be right up here on this rock ledge. I have come up here many times. Like I've said, this is, well, it's on the way to my favorite spot. This is how I have to go to get up there. I mean, there's other ways to get up there, but they're very difficult. This is the easiest way to get up to that spot. But I step very carefully, place my feet cautiously, and I stand with a widespread stance, generally sideways to the ledge, because, believe it or not, I am afraid of heights. Alright friends, so I went through all of the beauty berries, cleaned them out and all of that, rinsed them and got them nice and clean. Then I measured out 6 cups of the berries and I put it in my non-reactive pot here. I took my potato masher, mashed them all up as much as I could, and then I added in 8 cups of water. I brought the berries up to a boil and I let it boil for 20 minutes. And so now I'm going to ladle out the contents of the pot here. And I have a jelly strainer that you can see right here. It has the little feet here, so if you've got, you know, the right sized bowl, you could have it stand on it. But I'm just going to place the jelly bag stand over my big measuring cup here. I'm going to need 3 cups of the liquid from the berries here. So let me actually move this a little bit closer. And I'm just going to start ladling this in here and straining it out. Now, I may actually have more than enough liquid to do multiple batches. And if I do, I probably won't can 2 batches today. I'm a little bit busy today. I have some things I've got to do besides this. And so what I can do is I can just strain out all of the pulp from the berries, save the liquid after I've strained it out, and just freeze it and then make jelly out of it another day. Now you want to take your time with this process when you're straining out your contents to get that nice clear juice. You want to let gravity do the job. Let it go through the cheesecloth or jelly bag like this on its own. Let it go nice and slowly. If you force it and you squeeze it, what's going to happen is some of the pulp and everything from those berries will end up going into your container down below, and you're not going to get as clear, sparkling jelly. It might be cloudy and things like that. So you just want to let this take its time and, again, let gravity do its thing. Just be patient. It doesn't take that long. I went ahead and I washed out my pot right here. And so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the rest of the jelly making. And from this point forward, it's pretty much like any other jelly recipe. I've got my hot Beautyberry juice right here. I have 3 cups. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this into my pot. And I'm going to go ahead and add in 1 pouch of the original Sure Gel pectin. Now, if you're using bulk pectin, now of course you can use your bulk pectin. I honestly don't usually buy bulk pectin because I don't do a lot of, I really don't do a lot of jelly canning. This is not something I do very often, so I just pick up some of this when I need it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in my 1 pouch of pectin. Alright, my camera was not recording there. But I went ahead and I added in my pouch of pectin. And I'm letting that kind of heat back up since I had taken everything off the stove there for a little bit. And I'm just going to very quickly measure out my sugar so that it's ready. Also going to go ahead and add in about a half a teaspoon of butter, and that will help keep jelly from foaming up. And then you don't have to worry about that step of removing the foam from the top. So now this is starting to get good and hot, so I'm going to go ahead and stir this continually. Alright, so my jelly here is boiling. I'm going to let it boil for 1 minute, boil really hard for 1 minute, and then we'll add in the lemon juice and the sugar. Alright, added in the sugar, and now I'm going to quickly add in 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. So it has come back up to a boil. You can see it right there. And so now we're just going to let this boil really hard for a full minute. And then I'll test the jelly to make sure that it has gelled up. I have a couple of spoons. I keep in the freezer. They're nice and cold. And so let's go ahead and set up a timer here. So when my timer goes off, I'll turn off the stove real quickly, grab one of those cold spoons, and then I'll just drip a little bit of the jelly onto the cold spoon and then run my finger through it. And if it is gelled up, then it's ready. If not, we'll let it boil for just a little bit longer. Got my cold spoon here. Alright, I'm just going to run my finger through it. And that is thickened up. Give that one more stir, let it kind of settle down a little bit. And now it's time to ladle it up. Alright, so I'm filling up my canning jars here. And these are little Italian ones that I found online a while back. I've had them in my pantry forever, and when I went in there to grab some jars to can this up, I thought, you know what? Let's use these. Now, these canning jars, they're not standard, as you can see. I can't use my canning funnel to fill them up. I'm having to use my little silicone funnel that I use for other things. And the lids that come with them are one-time use lids. And they're one-piece lids. So, give that a little swish swish. Give that a little swish. Get out any bubbles. I'm going to take my cloth here. Dip it in some vinegar. See, I got a little bit of jelly on there. This is why I always wipe down my jars with some vinegar. You want to make sure your jar is nice and clean. And these jars, because they're a little bit different, I'm just going to fill these up to where the neck begins. Put on my hot lid. Ooh, this is hot! Alright, and into the canner. And I am preheating these lids just because, you know, I've never canned with these before. And so I want to make sure that gasket is nice and hot. Alright, so I've got 5 jelly jars, and these are going to be basically 4-ounce jars of the Beautyberry jelly. I've got my canner has been hot this whole time, so I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on. Now, this is a steam canner. It is for high acid foods. So anything that you could can in a hot water bath canner, you can can in one of these, but it only takes this much water, heats up super fast, cools down really fast, is lightweight. It's super easy to use. I have an ebook I wrote all about using steam canners. So I'm going to let this come up to a boil, let it get up to temperature, and if you were using a hot water bath canner, the processing time is exactly the same as this one, and that processing time is 10 minutes. And of course you do have to adjust for elevation depending upon where you live. And I have an article on my website that tells you exactly how to do that for all your canning recipes. Alright, everything has processed. It's been 10 minutes. And so I'm going to go ahead and take off the lid. Look at that. Alright, we'll let that sit for just a couple of minutes. Oh, that's a good sound. We'll let that sit for a couple of minutes, and then we'll go ahead and transfer them over to the lined surface over here. I've got one of my canning pads that a sweet subscriber made for me. And then we'll just let them cool. Alright friends, so that is it. The Beautyberry jelly set up beautifully. You can see it in there. It tastes amazing. It's really hard to describe. The berries themselves have a very floral fragrance to them, but I'm not exactly sure how I would describe Beautyberry jelly, like the flavor of it. It's very pleasant. It's delicious. But as you can see, the jelly did set up. I had a couple people mention that they've had issues with the Beautyberry jelly setting up properly. I think the key for jelly is to always make sure you boil it hard, like boil it for a full minute, and then always test it to make sure that it's fully set up, like you saw me do with the cold spoon. If it isn't fully setting up, let it boil a little bit longer. And then this sat overnight. I tested all of the seals. Now, this being a one-piece cap, I just pushed on it to make sure it didn't pop. But I could hear them all tinking into place as I was taking them out of the canner. So I've never canned anything with one-piece tops like this, but I thought these adorable little jars were just kind of perfect for it. Got that cute little design on there and everything. It's got like a flowers, and I think it's a beehive and fruit and all of that stuff on there. So if you would like to make Beautyberry jelly, you can get the printable version of this recipe on my website, cosmopolitancornbread.com. And you know, if you ever try any of my recipes, please give me a 5-star rating on the recipe card where you would print it out. That really helps me out anytime you do that. And if you're brand new here and you haven't checked out my website yet, there's over 800 recipes and then articles and everything else on top of that. I have been a food writer for a very long time. So with that, I am going to get about doing what I need to do here. I'm in the process of making dinner. This will be my Wednesday video, so you'll see this outfit again in a later video this week. So thanks for spending some time with me here again in the homestead. My name is Constance from Cosmopolitan Cornbread, and I'll talk to y'all next time.